One of my theories is that in nature, everything will be in equilibrium if left alone. It's only when man and technology start to interfere with nature that we start to have issues, and one of the biggest places that we've seen these issues manifest themselves is in our health. And as we start to add more and more technology into our lives, we move further and further away from living as nature intended, and many aspects of our health got worse. I like to use the hunter-gatherer or ancestral lifestyle as one of my primary guides for health, a bit like a health compass. Almost everything regarding health that I think about doing, I like to determine if it either fit in or contrasted with what humans were doing 10,000 years ago. Along my health journey, I found the things that really worked were those that were most in line with nature, and it wasn't some weird diet or biohack or some specific form of exercise. It was really about trying to live as close to nature and evolution as possible. So let's start with a typical day for one of our ancestors and try to have this make more sense. One of the first things is that someone who was a hunter-gatherer probably lived in a cave or some kind of outdoor shelter. So when they were sleeping, they were almost always sleeping in cooler temperatures than what they experienced during the day. This means that at night, when our ancestors were sleeping, the air temperature they experienced was significantly colder than what many of us would find comfortable now. This shows both the value of lowering your room temperature while you sleep at night and the importance of cold exposure. The sun usually woke our ancestors, and so the next thing that they did each day was expose their eyes to the light of the sun. Then they likely had to drink some water, as that was about the only thing available. They also did not eat right away, because on most days there was nothing to eat, so they practiced intermittent fasting. And since there was no food, they had to go find some, so they started walking around to try and find something to eat. They didn't jog or sprint to find food. They likely conserved their energy until they found an animal to hunt. And when they did find an animal, they had to sprint for short periods of time during the hunt, and if they were lucky enough to be successful, then they had to drag that animal back to their camp. From this, we can extract walking as exercise, some high-intensity interval training for sprints, and some weight or resistance training to mimic the dragging of the animal back to camp. During the day, they would also expose themselves and their bodies to the sun and get a lot of vitamin D. And if they wanted to bathe or play in some water, it's almost certain that that water would have been very cold, so they got some cold water exposure there too. As the sun set, they would expose themselves to the sun's rays and light, which is similar to red light therapy, and they may expose themselves to high heat temperatures by sitting around the fire, much like a sauna. So if we extract the health protocol from our ancestors, here's what we get for a typical day. Lower room temperature for sleeping, sun in your eyes first thing in the morning, intermittent fasting, hydrating with water, walking, small amounts of high-intensity interval training, some resistance training, a diet of mostly animals and plants, sun exposure and vitamin D, cold water exposure, red light therapy, and the sauna. And if we compare this list to what is being talked about for optimal health these days, I think you'll find that these items are being advocated by many, if not all of those in the natural health world. Now, we can add some things into this and we can make some adjustments, but anything we add in or adjust must be viewed through the lens of whether it fits in or goes against nature.